Hi, everybody. I'm going to adjust this for the shorter people here. I am Jen Talansky from Nonprofit Finance Fund. Thank you all for being here today. We know that everybody is incredibly busy, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here for this very important topic. Before we go any further, I do want to take a moment and acknowledge all of the people and communities that were affected by Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. I saw the devastation and I was just heartsick. All of us are here because our work is really ultimately about helping people and communities, and it's going to be a long road to recovery for many. And some of the people in this room are probably those who are helping with that recovery. So we stand with you, we're grateful for you, thank you, and we hope that it will be a road that people can get on as quickly as possible. So some quick background on Nonprofit Finance Fund. We basically do three things. We make loans to mission-focused organizations, primarily nonprofits. We do consulting to help nonprofits and their funders think best how to connect resources to the mission outcomes they want to achieve. And we share and develop big ideas, ideas like this, ideas that help to advance the sector and to create the more just and vibrant society we want to see in this country. There are a couple of organizations who are focused on outcomes that I want to highlight. They're doing tremendous things in their communities. Nurse Family Partnership, which probably many of you know. They are a national nurse-led organization that provides home visits to low-income, first-time mothers to work to create healthier pregnancies and healthier outcomes for the mothers and their babies. They have been focused on outcomes for decades. They wrote a chapter in the book on their experience with Pay for Success. And as Eric mentioned, we aren't up here today to be Pollyanna, and their chapter talks about how hard their experience is as they're going through it. I think they've been working with 3 states over 2 years and gotten 1 deal that's in the works. So it's not easy, even for an organization that is focused on outcomes. But their chapter also talks about some very practical and actionable lessons that we can all learn as we advance an outcomes-based focused universe. And then we have BRC, an incredible homeless services organization in New York City. The CEO, Muzzy Rosenblatt, consulted with us on the video that you just saw. BRC is an organization that has really focused on their outcomes and on using data to transform how they do their work. And one of the examples of this, they noticed a couple years back that the homelessness recidivism rate was going up. And they said, why is this going on? And what they realized was that the rent subsidies that had helped their clients have affordable housing in the crazy housing market that is New York City, those rent subsidies had been eliminated. So they said, okay, they already ran a very high-quality homeless services program, but they said, okay, that's not enough. We have to be part of owning the problem and the solution, and they became low-income housing developers. So you hear all this and you say, what's the point? Of course a homeless services organization cares about ending homelessness. Of course Nurse Family Partnership cares about putting mothers and their babies on a better life trajectory. As you saw in the video, the reality is that our social sector is not oriented primarily around outcomes. It's primarily oriented around outputs. When we sit down at NFF with all of our clients and all of the funders, everybody's deepest aspirations is to do all of the things on the right. But the way the money flows is primarily towards the things on the left. And so if you are running a health clinic, you are paid primarily for seeing patients, how many patients you see, rather than for healing folks. If you run an early child care center, you're paid for taking care of kids for the day, rather than for putting them on a better life trajectory. There are some incredible organizations in this room, both those who give money and those who use money, who are focusing much more on outcomes, but most of the sector is still focused on outputs, and we hope to see that change. This funding orientation really causes organizations to focus on short-term fixes, and we all want to see organizations focused on the longer-term solutions that can really put their clients on path to the best lives possible. So here's why this is a powerful idea. Imagine what our system could look like if how you're paid is really aligned with what you were trying to achieve. No more red tape and infrastructure set up around measuring outputs and spending lots of time on compliance and reporting. More flexibility instead to experiment with solutions. and getting paid the full cost of the services that you're providing, including for measuring the outcomes that we all need to know about. And for all of those of you who fund social services, having funding around outcomes allows for greater accountability. You will know that your resources are being spent towards the changes that you want to see in the world and being spent well towards those. And the time is now. There is growing inequality in the world. Nonprofits are having a hard time keeping up with the service demand. At the same time, the rapid growth, the rapid changes in technology are creating the infrastructure that allows us to do this more easily. And as Eric mentioned, we're in a universe of limited resources. When we have the disasters like we've had recently, they become even more limited. And so we really do want to know that our resources are being spent well towards the things that really make a difference for people. We have a system that's not oriented this way. These are the key players in this system, and it's going to require all of us to behave in different ways. For service providers, it's a shift from tracking outputs to managing to results. Not just measuring, but really using that data to transform, when necessary, your services. And as BRC did, moving from we're going to do our part to we're going to own the problem and the solution. Government is also going to have to change, and it's not easy. It's much easier to pay for activities than it is to pay for results. Both from a technical perspective and from a political perspective. It's risky to say, I'm going to take taxpayer money and I'm going to put it towards things that are an experiment. I don't know if they're going to work. There was a great example of DC Water here. There's a chapter in the book. DC Water found a way to share the financial risk with private investors. So they wanted to try a green infrastructure way to deal with sewer overflow, and that was a newer thing. And so they entered into the first ever environmental impact bond. It's a muni bond with outcomes payments tied to it. And they were therefore able to share the risk with private investors, and they were able to try something that would be better for the environment while spreading that financial risk. So it is possible, and we really need to move towards government being a partner in trying to create the solutions that we want to see in the world, and resourcing organizations to do so. Private donors need to move more from program grants to really understanding the full cost of what it's going to take to deliver what you want to see happen in the world. And this needs to happen with the whole system, boards, leadership, as well as at the program level. And there's a new role for investors. We, as a CDFI and others who are lending to organizations, need to exercise a different muscle. We were proud to make a $2 million loan to BRC, and we knew that we would get repaid because they were getting paid by the government for people in beds. It will require us building new muscle to be able to orient around financing organizations that are funded based on outcomes. And there's an important key element for all of us to consider. We're ultimately doing this all to create a more just and vibrant society for the moms and the babies that Nurse Family Partnership serves, for the people like Jack who are suffering from depression, for the millions of people who all are looking to have the kind of just and vibrant experience of this country that we want for everybody, including our families and ourselves. A focus on outcomes and measuring outcomes requires some personal and sometimes invasive data collection. So for Nurse Family Partnership, for us to know whether they're achieving their outcomes, they're going to have to follow up with those moms and say, how are you doing? How are your children doing? For a while, and ask personal questions. So we need to be sensitive, thoughtful, cautious, and just aware as we do these kinds of things. But the trade-off is that the folks who are receiving services have access to services that aren't just providing short-term fixes, they're providing longer-term, more meaningful help. This transition is exciting. We've all heard about pay for success. There are a lot of other ways that this plays out in the field. If you haven't read the book yet, please, these are complimentary copies of the book. And let me also pause and just say, we can offer up, I'm looking at David as I'm saying this, we can offer up copies of the book if you'd like more for your organization or you have an event. Please come and see us or go and order books on the website. We are happy to ship books to you guys to use for your organization or for other events. So there's my commercial on the book. But in the book, you will see lots of examples of, we've all heard about Pay for Success. There are outcomes rate cards, there's prizes, there's advanced market commitments, there's an environmental impact bond. That's the opportunity. We are excited to hear from the many different speakers today who are going to talk about how this looks from different sectors, from different seats, and the different kinds of stakeholders. And I just want to take a final moment and thank our partners at the San Francisco Fed, who have been fantastic. Ian and David, thank you. It's really just been a joyous journey. And we are excited. I also want to thank the funders who have made NFF's participation in this possible. The Bank of America Charitable Foundation has been a longtime partner of NFF on many of our thought leadership initiatives, so we're very grateful to their involvement. And we've also gotten tremendous support from the Kresge Foundation, from the Omidyar Network, from the MacArthur Foundation, from the Rockefeller Foundation, from Robin Hood, and from the Ford Foundation. So big thanks to all of them for making our part in this possible. I'm going to hand it off to Michelle Jolin, the co-founder and CEO of Results for America, who's going to introduce our next distinguished guests and lead our fireside chat.